Hey everyone, this is Ryan. I'm on production duty tonight. Feeling a little too tired to go the full power hour. I'm out of power this power hour, but we do have Jake and Safe that are going to join on in a second. So you might hear me from time to time, but like your favorite podcast where the producer gets a little word in or two as we go along. I'll hop on every now and then, but I will say thank God we finally got a Syracuse victory in a huge game, and nothing sweeter than doing it to Hopkins. So, without further ado, we'll take it over to Jake and Safe for this edition of the Saturday Night Power Hour.
Ryan, you got the timer?
Yeah, as the producer, I
You
will
are the-
be
you are the
the
producer.
timer. Yes, so
Okay. Yeah.
let's get that 1 hour on the clock starting now.
All right, let's hit it. Good evening. Hit it. Good evening. We're live. I'm Jake. That is Safe. Safe is muted or not speaking.
Oh no, we're having a few technical difficulties right now, but that's all well and good with going live and everything. So Safe just fixing up his stuff. So that means there we go.
Hey, how's this? Better?
There we go.
Jake, I was killing it. I had so many jokes. I was like, Jake's not laughing at any of my jokes. What am I supposed to
It's the
do?
greatest audio ever.
I was talking to you. I was like, I have my
no
standing
selling.
desk.
Just no
4 years later,
selling.
I finally have my remote desk.
Like you're a jobber.
rolling here.
Nothing. All right.
Other than that, I'm bombing here before we even
So
go
with that,
live.
1 hour on the clock starting now for you.
There we go. All right. Let's hit it. Syracuse 14, Johns Hopkins 13. The Orange get their first win over a top 10 team in almost 2 years. I think it's like 2 weeks, almost like 2 weeks of the day. The last one was over Duke in the Carrier Dome. So a massive result for the Orange. I would venture to say easily the biggest win of the Gary Gate era so far. Gets them certainly on track regarding NCAA tournament, all that good stuff. And a very fun, certainly a fun game. We got another, big time top 10 game that delivered on, the promise and the hype after a, kind of, let's say, a slow boiling first half. We got 20 goals in the second half between these two teams. So I mentioned, tweeted out the Syracuse offense, or attack specifically, that have kind of been held in check in these first games against these top 5 teams. Certainly delivered. Spallino had his moments. Hilton Muley were terrific. Mason Cone, the faceoff dot, won over at least probably 2/3. It was Will Marks' best game of the year for Syracuse for sure. Just everything they could have really needed to get the victory. And they were able to. It certainly got hairy there at the end. I think, Syracuse looked like a team that has not closed out one of these games. And has, this group specifically has not, won one of these big games, and has been in them, had some close calls. The Duke game last year in the Carrier Dome, obviously the Maryland and Army games this year, but has not been able to, get the job done, get it over the line. They kind of looked like that towards the end. I did not like that offensive possession or the way it was going, but they got the reset and they held it out. And so big time win for the Orange to launch their season and set them up for what, was kind of anticipated heading in, certainly very promising things as they get their first win over Hopkins in 4 years since 2020. And, a win over a top 5 Hopkins team, to boot at that. So huge win for Syracuse.
Jake, when I was kind of predicting, I thought it'd be like a good kind of comeback year for Syracuse. This is kind of like the template. I saw obviously probably if you're a Cuse fan, would like a little bit cleaner end of game and maybe have a little bit just somewhat of a better offensive set, especially with that like last minute when they were trying to essentially probably kill time, but also like you also want to kind of attack the goal. But I was like offense that is hums. You have Will Mark, who I thought was like one of their stars of the game. Just at certain points, like he was kind of a brick wall. I think, especially the third quarter when Hopkins was trying to make their own run. They were able to capitalize on Hopkins' mistakes because Hopkins left, as you kind of, I don't know if you actually put any numbers back, but you're like, there seems like there's so many goals left on the table for both teams. So you kind of saw that was probably testament to Cuse's youth as well. Also with all the transfers and everything, there's just like a lot of new guys, and so this is kind of a different position for them. I know they came into the game as slight underdogs, but once it really started going, I felt like they're kind of evenly matched for the Jays. Like kind of share what Adam said in the chat, like just to clean up a few more mistakes. Hopkins maybe wins by 1 or 2, but I was encouraged with the comeback. I think if it wasn't for like those multiple turnovers with like 5 or 6 minutes to play, like Hopkins would have had like more than one shot at tying it up. And then at the end, unfortunately, the turnover once they finally did have the ball with like 15 seconds or so. But it was a tough game. Neutral site for both teams, so kind of a away game for both. Third away game versus ACC team for Hopkins, so I thought maybe not fatigue, but just another road test with a quality top opponent, and definitely super happy about the Virginia win last week. But would have liked to I think at the end of the season we're kind of, I'll look at this game and the Denver game, like 1 or 2 more plays here or there they probably would have won, but that's what happens. Hughes made enough plays. Like I said, I thought in face-off they were pretty dominant until Hopkins started having a little bit of better luck in the second half. But this is kind of what the Qs I figured. I was like, a team that can like put the ball in the net, like has a tough defense with Mark. I thought maybe they could have had a little bit bigger lead just because like as Hopkins was kind of inept in that first quarter, but they got enough of a lead to keep Hopkins at bay, and like I said, they ended up I kind of felt like that one period where they're like they got up by 4. I was like, if Jays didn't do something, like this could have been like not a rout, but like it could have been like 6-7 goal victory for Syracuse, just the way they were playing there. So so happy for Hopkins. Stop the bleeding as a Hopkins fan, but like I said, like a few plays here or there, maybe been W for the Jays, but it wasn't for today. And congrats to Cuse. It was definitely a good effort by them. And for Gate, this is probably something that he's been not yearning for, but like wanting to get in his regime. And I think this is the year where things are kind of falling into place where probably I think Syracuse may be like a sleeper challenge in the ACC, just because like I don't think any of the ACC teams like have like separated themselves as everyone thought they would, and maybe Duke's like sleepwalking a little bit just because they have so much talent. But if Cuse plays to this potential, like they could be a sleeper number 2 team in the ACC. Like I really think this, once they actually really gel and have that flow, like I think this could be a dangerous team.
Just looking. Ryan, can you get this tweet from Army up on the screen? Because this is hilarious. Just Army, what Army just tweeted out like 20 minutes ago. It's very, very good. Anyhow, while Ryan's working on that, for Hopkins, it felt like they were just like it was like a boat that was like just taking on water like the whole game, and they were just like trying to like just throw like the water out the side of the boat. It's like if anyone who's been watching like Shogun lately, the new series on FX and Hulu, it's like this it seemed like they're trying there's like like crazy like tide, you know, like they're at like sea and they're trying to like move the ship like through it because like they're just the wave is like coming overboard onto the ship. And the like, you know, crazy, the like one, you know, crazy English guy who's there. He's like, row faster. I feel like just what Hopkins you know, vibe was the entire game. And by the end of the fourth, they were just like they just capsized. If you look at Hopkins' performance in the second half offensively, I mean, it's unbelievable. Like they scored 9 goals on 16 possessions. Like that's, you know, nuts. I mean, in the fourth quarter, Hopkins had 7 possessions in the fourth quarter and scored 5 goals. They were just basically automatic. The problem was really, I think you mentioned it. Yeah, it was those two, the one where they missed the pass to Degnan, and then they got the stop again, and Ireland blew the clearing pass. It was basically just like 2 straight stops, and I don't remember if it ended in a Q's goal, but it was basically like you lost 2-3 minutes right there and a chance to score. And considering how your offense was playing, you probably can assume you would have scored a goal. And so, yeah, I mean, Hopkins' offense in the second half was phenomenal. For the game, Hopkins' offense was Cuse's was. It was 42% offensive efficiency for Hopkins in comparison to 34% for Syracuse. But the difference is, I mentioned, plus 10 possession advantage for Cuse. And that just, you know, and it's obviously it's done by 71% at the faceoff dot. That'll do it. 6 failed clears for Hopkins compared to just 2 for Cuse. That'll do it. So like those are just, you know, it's really just hard to overcome that. And it's not like, again, Cuse was good offensively. Like they were at 34% against Hopkins defense. That's a really good day at the office. You know, so they did well. The Hopkins offense did more than enough to win this game, you know, considering what had happened. But, you know, just dominate on faceoffs, bad clearing. Ireland, I thought, played well in terms of like his shot stopping, but rebound control was a problem. He gave up some like loose, you know, kind of like rebounds. And it, you know, led to kind of second chance opportunities for Cuse, you know, second possessions. So that was really kind of, yeah, just, you know, by the end, you can't overcome that. You know, Jake Stevens was huge for Cuse in that fourth quarter with a goal off a face-off and then a man-up goal, you know, that made a big difference. Overall, like both teams, like turnovers are pretty low in this game. Like Hopkins only had 7 turnovers. Cuse, considering the number of possessions they had, 12 turnovers. Like, you know, after that, there was that brief period in like the second quarter where it got sloppy. But overall, I thought it was a well-played game. You know, it was just, I mean, the failed clears for Hopkins, obviously, you know, was the real, but that did them in. As far as I think what you mentioned about Cuse, you know, and where they can go, I think there's certainly promise, you know, with this. Like they have a face-off guy who can compete in that conference now with, you know, with Naso, obviously, and Will Lynch and Gabriel for Virginia. You know, what him replacing PD LaSala. So that's a major, you know, factor. The offense getting, you know, the production from, you know, Mule and Hiltz in addition to Splina. The defense is still my kind of question with them in these sorts of big games. You know, it's just kind of, you know, I kind of look at, you know, again, Hopkins being able to just put the ball in the net at will the way they were. If this is a different game, and, you know, in terms of how many like if Hopkins has 5-6 more possessions, this gets to like 16-17 goals probably. And, you know, it's probably more outsized the way we kind of look at Cuse's defensive performance. That's certainly why you have Will Mark back there. This was the first game Will Mark looked like he did a year ago. And I think obviously, you know, that's a big factor for them, but I don't know that they have fully figured out that defense. It's not what it was. I'm not gonna say. I mean, it's better than it was a couple years ago. I talked about it all the time. And look, Hopkins has a great offense. Like, this was a game where two great offenses played really well. But I do think it's a factor that kind of what is that I'm not sure it's, they've kind of figured out, who is, maybe like, I know Figueres is their number one cover guy. Is he ready to take on the responsibilities of the top guys in the ACC? I think that's a question. And then, the shorties, are they going to be able to kind of hang with some of those midfields, in the ACC as well? Though I think the midfields in the ACC may be a little down, as we've kind of been talking about. But nonetheless, I mean, those are questions, that they'll can answer for another time when they play Duke in a couple weeks. For now, I mean, this is a big time win for Cuse that they needed that gets them going for this season. Gets them a big win on the board. And for Hopkins, yeah, just they were due to lay an egg. I mean, really, if you think about it, they've played 6 games, 5 of them against top 20 teams, and this was the first played 6 games, like 4 or 5 of them against top 20 teams. And I mean, this is the only really one that I could say they really laid an egg in. Like the Denver game, they should have won. This is the first game they've played where they were maybe not, you could say, the better team. And so they were due for a game where they just really kind of had a letdown. And I think the fact, they could say they still, if they could have been able to execute better in some of those areas, could have won is positive. But yeah, they were due for, kind of letdown. They had it, and Cuse took advantage of the win.
Duke Loyola?
Yeah, we can go there.
Just a fascinating game. I mean, tied up 7.5. Duke kind of, put their impose their will in the second half. Ends up winning 16-10. Can we start to give Zawada the best transfer of the year? We're back to him. He had a 1 week layoff, with the Penn game, but essentially just this weapon that they finally have found a way to use and not, have Brennan's, production diminished too drastically. Now you have like this, great scorer, transfer from Michigan on top of arguably the best player in the world who's already on your team. So, but yeah, still at times that sleepwalking, is that fair? Or maybe that's not fair because maybe
no,
too much for I think with Duke, it's just I think they realize, maybe it's too nihilistic, but that none of this matters. That none of the regular season stuff. They want to win. I'm sure. I'm not saying anything untoward or anything their goal is to win all these games and have a high seed and everything like that. But I think if you ask Dano, 1 seed or unseed, do you care as long as you make the I think that their goal is hey, we kind of know what we have to do to actually kind of make this stuff actually matter for them, because I really don't think anything besides a Memorial Day appearance is going to feel satisfactory to this particular team. And
I don't think anything.
Maybe a title,
a championship is
satisfactory. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was I'm not obviously, but getting there. It's a crapshoot, as we always say. What you?
Yeah, for sure.
But my point is that's the game that matters. Memorial Day Monday game, and it's just I'm like I said, I'm not saying that disrespecting their opponents, but it's just I think especially this team with Brennan, and now they got these other weapons, and maybe it's not Dano's last ride, but it's kind of getting around the last lap. It's just this is the best team that they've had in years, and who's fallen short multiple times. But still, it's literally on the cusp. I mean, they lost Memorial Day Monday last week, so it's hard to and we always say with Duke, it's hard to see that they're a disappointment because they just keep making Final Fours and they keep making Memorial Day Mondays. But there's a tinge of when you're looking back, there's a lot of bites of that apple. How many pieces did we come away with? So that's what I'm saying. It was giving them maybe that's giving them too much slack for like not playing at elite all the time. But like yeah, I think like for them it's like yeah, we want to get to the regular season, maybe 2 or 3 losses at most, win the ACC and all that as goals. But like yeah, it's like Memorial Day Monday. That's the game that like if they make it there, that's the only one that's really going to count.
Producer Ryan here, real quick. Speaking of disappointing, Evan Grimes in the chat pointed out, shame on you for not going to the 7-0 New Jersey Institute of Technology Highlanders men's lacrosse team.
You got you on that one.
That's our closer.
Yeah, you got you on that one.
Yeah, so stay tuned, Evan. That's our teaser.
Good point, Ev. I appreciate it.
So I think they're an interesting team, Duke, this year. The vibe is definitely I can't get a read so far. I just can't. Yeah, I cannot get a. Last year, Safe, you had it like right away. I remember we did like the pod like 1 week in. You're like, is Duke back? I'm like, oh, okay then. All right, that's the interesting question. And because there was a certain, like they played with a certain, intensity and swagger from the beginning last year. I'm trying to put like Duke. The problem Duke had, I felt, with like towards some of these Danowski, kind of this more. I don't know how many eras we sort of see in this kind of Danowski. It's just been like there was the first era with like the, I guess when he kind of took over the Pressler guys. And he had, Matt, and then when that kind of like ended with when they won the title. Then there was the second era, which was like the, when they won the 2 titles. And I guess you could say maybe there was like, maybe you could wrap up if you wanted to, you could say like everything since then has been like a third. I would maybe put into like 4. There's like that kind of period after they won the title where they had like the 3 years they didn't get to the Final Four, and like the guys just Gutterding's kind of run, and then they finally got back and they lost to Yale, and then maybe just kind of this kind of last sort of this O'Neal run. Maybe you could even loop in that one they lost to Virginia in that Final Four, but they should have won that. Yeah. Is that what I feel like they've really lacked is that they often haven't felt like a team that fought for like every inch of the field. And this is what Virginia really, I think, Lars and kind of like brought, and the change he kind of like and you get forced out of kind of their rivals. We saw with like Maryland, what they did to Maryland in that quarterfinal in 2019, where Maryland was trying to play kind of a half field, like just we're up by 5, kind of milk the clock down. End the game, the way it was kind of used to be. And UVA hunted them down. And Maryland was forced to, and Tim was like, we can't play this way anymore. Like, we got to push transition more. And, we saw, what Maryland did in 2022, where, they had how many goals from long poles and short sticks. And, the game, they really changed their approach. We've seen it in Notre Dame with the Kavanaughs. How they always rode well, but really when they've put Pat and Chris Kavanaugh in there, like it's just become a different element and weapon in terms of how they ride. Like they tilt the field when they win faceoffs, and they're able to ride like that. They tilt the field in a way that's just so dramatic because it's like we saw it to Maryland last week. Like you just feel like you're not going to get the ball because even if you get a stop, they're just going to get it back. So, and I feel like Duke lacked in that department for a long time there because it just felt like Duke didn't do any of that. They didn't ride. They didn't push in transition. They just tried to play you 6-on-6 and it was like, we got the better players, and we have our schemes and systems that have worked for a long time and obviously, made Final Fours. And because it's, these work, it's like, get us to, look, it got them to the Final Four, it wasn't that it wasn't working, but you would see kind of when it got to like that cutting edge point that, they looked sort of just kind of flat, like sometimes they look flat. They didn't, there was a juice that they kind of lacked, it felt like, in comparison to, UVA or Maryland or Notre Dame. Last year, I felt that was different. They really they rode harder than they had. Their shorties were the best they've been in years. They were pushing more in transition. It felt like they made kind of the adjustments to what happened in 2022. And there was an intensity, and we talked like the physicality they played with. Sometimes it fit them, but that's just the sort of mantra and identity they took on. And you could feel that from the beginning of the season. I don't see that this year. It feels like they're just kind of more back to, we're just going to kind of play you up, straight up, 6-on-6, both ends of the field. And offensively, this is working because, like you mentioned with Zawada, he's in that offense. He's flourishing. Like, he feels like it's just, he should have been playing there like for his entire career. Not don't mean like anything as a shot. I'm just saying, like, in terms of like the like stylistic fit, like it feels like it's just home for him. And it feels like the kind of guy Duke has been missing in that spot for years. Because when you think of that Duke offense, that's the kind of player they always had. They had Matt Dino, and they had Crotty, and they had Jordan Wolf. And then Gutterding was a little different. Adam kind of mentioned this in the chat when I brought up. Like, Gutterding did a lot of his work from, kind of the wings. Goal line extended. Zawada's like a pure behind the cage. Like, just, ex-attackman. And like that's not Brennan. Like, he's a dominant player, but he's never going to be like behind the cage because he's just too physically imposing. You want him running downhill at guys. And so while they've been able to make it work, you kind of see these kind of moments that kind of people criticize, like why does Duke go times where like the ball's not in Brennan's stick? It's like, well, they're trying to marry their offense to Brennan, and they've been able to make it work in a way that they never made it work with Sowers. Like Sowers, we thought like, oh, Duke needs an ex-attackman. Boom, you just put Michael Sowers in there. It's going to work. Well, it never did. Like, it never really kind of, fit in that sort of way. We thought Sowers was the guy who could plug in and work. It didn't. They still got to the Final Four. Like, so it's not like it was a failure. Sowers still put up like, however many points. But Zawada's really like fit in that. And he's been their most productive player. He's been more productive than Brennan so far. Even so. And then you just put that with like, it's like you mentioned like, yeah, so like Brennan doesn't have to touch the ball, but like they got another guy who you got to, put all that attention to. And Dyson is still there, just waiting to catch, slam dunks. Like, okay, like alley oops for slam dunk. Like, so offensively, like, again, they're going to be so hard to stop. Defensively, yeah, like Loyola played, Loyola went punch for punch with them in that first half. Like this was, I thought this was the best game I've seen Loyola play maybe all year. In a weird sort of like way, like, like they really hung in there with Duke. They were able to attack Duke. They found some soft spots in that defense. And they were, they would attack them from behind the cage. So, yeah, it was kind of unfortunate for Loyola that just they couldn't win faceoffs, which has been a problem for them all year. And then they had a lot of man-up opportunities that they could not take advantage of in that second half. And it's like, again, if you're not going to win faceoffs, you got to be able to steal some goals somewhere else. You got to win some, like, got to get some man-ups. They couldn't do it. But yeah, I thought Loyola played pretty well, better than they played in the Hopkins game, I thought, for sure. And then the Georgetown game increasingly feels like sort of a kind of maybe one-off. So like I thought maybe like this was maybe their best game. But yeah, Duke, it's hard to get a read for them. I don't really know what we're kind of looking at with Duke so far, and that's the thing is like I don't. It's not 2022. It's not that. Like I don't get that vibe. But I don't get the feeling I did last year. It was like early on you kind of tell they were really humming, and they were gonna like run over teams. They played that way with Princeton. Like they get angry, and so that team we saw against Princeton is the best team in the country. Probably. But yeah, it'll just be kind of interesting to see sort of how this games play out. And they got some, they got a tough little they got a tough test there. They go at Richmond next. They put Providence midweek here, but then they're at Richmond next Saturday. Then they play Cuse midweek, and then they're home to Denver. That's 3 top 20 games in 8 days, 2 of them on the road. That's a tough test. By far the tough test for the team, a team that's had a relatively lighter schedule up to this point. So I think it'll definitely be interesting to see kind of how they come out of that stretch, and see if we can kind of learn more. But for now, like, look, their floor is still very high because they're just so talented. everywhere on the field. And Patrick Jamison, the freshman goalie, has been phenomenal for them, saving 58%. He's been an improvement on William Helm, so they upgraded in that spot. So they're kind of just chugging along, sort of just kind of sitting back there. Yeah, like them being sixth. I never would have kind of thought that they'd fall to sixth in the rankings at kind of any point in the season. So it's interesting.
Go to Terps.
Yeah, I guess.
Listen, a win is a win, Jay. A win is a win.
Yeah, they don't ask how. They just ask how much. And 1 is the answer.
Third
wins.
overtime? Right,
3
yeah.
out of 5.
Is it third overtime win?
Man.
Mentally tough. You gotta give the boys that.
Yeah, they fought back in it. Yeah, I mean, for sure, down 3. Second half they played well. I mean, if you kind of look at the sort of just the kind of Brown 5 goals on 21 possessions in the second half, particularly that's third quarter. Maryland's defense played really well, and Maryland offensively played tremendous in the second half. Though they should have. I mean, Brown is winless, but the vibe with this to talk about, again, we talk about the vibes. Luke Weirman apparently nicked up at the end of the Notre Dame game last week. Did not play. Tillman said that was the right call to rest him, which meant Maryland went with Shea Keithler, who has not had much playing experience at all in his college career. He had taken 3 faceoffs this season. He's a junior. Keithler, it's his 3rd year. Last year he took 1 faceoff, and in 2022 he took 8. So in total, coming in, he had taken 12 faceoffs in his career. So not a lot of experience, and he did well. He won 12 of 20. Interesting approach. This was interesting. They could have just kind of ridden him for the whole game because he had the better of it in terms of the draws, and they could have just given him there were 30 faceoffs again. They could have given all 30 faceoffs. Sean Creeder, the 5-star true freshman, who kind of looks like, considering his pedigree coming from high school, like the heir apparent to Weirman. He took 10 draws as well. He went 1 for 10 in his college debut. Tough welcome to D1. But they kept running Creeder out there, obviously, except, towards the end, when they needed the draws, they bring Keithler out there. And Keithler won some big draws for him in the 4th quarter. Though I'll say Jack Corus won just some huge ground balls on some of those, it was some of those were just Corus ground ball wins. Those faceoffs really should go to Jack Corus. But it was interesting, yeah, that approach, Tillman kind of took of we got Luke's not playing. So this is valuable game time for these backups, and we're just going to let them get it, as opposed to maybe just, hey, we need this win. Just go out there and let the Keithler just take 30 faceoffs. I thought that was interesting, and it panned out. They got the win anyway, and both guys got some significant playing time. Which, look, if the Weirman thing winds up being long term, it doesn't seem like it. Nicked up hopefully means, and Weirman's, the dog, so I hopefully means he's back for Virginia next week. But if it is something that persists, you're going to need 2 faceoff guys. They don't make dudes Weirman and Petey. Those guys are rare, taking the number of draws those guys have taken over the last, couple of years. It's pretty rare. Unless you're elite at 60, at the rate those guys win at, you probably need multiple faceoff guys. And even still, as we're seeing, Weirman missing a game probably means they're gonna need like a Kiefler, rotating in the mix now. And him being able to win 60% means, hey, maybe you can give Weirman, a break here and there. But look, obviously, you want Weirman back. As we kind of saw, like last week, Weirman had a tough game, and Logan McNaney really struggled. This week, Weirman doesn't play, and Logan McNaney really struggles. 2 straight weeks. This is the first time Logan McNaney's been below 50% save percentage for 2 straight games since the NCAA tournament in 2021. It's like 3 years. It's been a while since like he struggled to this kind of degree. I don't know what it is. He just wasn't seeing the ball. And then he kind of had some real just boneheaded moments kind of clearing. There was one especially at the end where Maryland, he just should have cleared it. And he tried to shoot on the empty cage when Brown went into the 10-man. He just kind of lollipopped it. Brown was easily able to get back and tie the game late. I tweeted this out. Logan McNaney's just like goalie Josh Allen. He's just like he has a golden retriever brain. Like he just does stuff back there. And I mean, look, he's one of the best goalies in the country. So like, it's the same with like Josh Allen. It's like, look, you take it. But like, he is who he is. You're not gonna like kind of change that. But it's just sometimes you're like, what are you, Doug? What are you doing? Like he had one like he made some good plays in it too. Like there's like a scrum for like the ball, and he just comes like flying out like into like a pack of like 5 dudes and wins the ball. It's like, sure, like he just does stuff sometimes. What
do we call it? Moxie his freshman year. I remember.
he's got a lot of it for sure. Yeah, he's crazy. I mean, but yeah, overall it was not a great McNaney game. He definitely wasn't seeing the ball well. He knew it early, like he was frustrated on like Brown's like 4th or 5th goal, and he just never kind of picked it up. It was raining, neither goalie played well. This was kind of raining hard all game. But yeah, it was, you kind of seen like around like the route we talk about what's the route for this team to win. Like Logan back there, Luke at the faceoff dot, obviously Ajax, in the sore spot it looked like towards the end of the game. So it had bad vibes for a while there. They got through it, but yeah, like this team, if McNaney struggles and obviously you don't have Weirman, like it's not built for being able to kind of overcome that long haul. I do think there were some positives offensively that like I was able to see. Braden Urksa had 8 points. It was a monster game. I thought Molliver was quiet in terms of like 2 assists, but like he was really operating behind the cage at X, which kind of we talk about. Like it looked like they were kind of getting like he made the adjustment that like he was going to be the guy kind of the quarterback, and like Urksa was sort of floating around, just taking up wherever he could find space. This was the second most assists. Like they're like 64% of the goals were assisted in this game. That was the second highest percentage they've had all year. Actually, the most was last week. So the percentage of their goals that are assisted is going up. And when I think of Maryland's offense, that's what you think about, is their goals being assisted, because it means the ball is moving. And it means they're finding, that extra pass. So it looked, this was, aside from the Syracuse game, this was their best offensive performance. Again, it should have been. It was Brown. Like, considering this was the one game on the schedule that looked like it'd be a kind of a layup, so to speak. And it wasn't. So, like, they're going to have just a brutal schedule the whole way. But, yeah, they got through it. The Virginia game is going to be really fascinating because it's hard to see this program not getting up for Virginia. Last year coming in, they looked kind of, they had taken their licks. They were already at 2 losses. They've been blown out by Loyola. They lost the tough one in Notre Dame. Then they went down to Charlottesville and won when Virginia was just humming. Whereas Virginia, on the other hand, kind of their game against Towson gave up like 15 goals. And then, of course, they had a run in there. I think there was like the game was 10-10 in Virginia when they went up like 19-10 at one point. So that, and that Virginia attack with like Millen and Schellenberger is just, as scary as it kind of looked on paper, kind of going in Cormier. But Virginia defensively doesn't looks a little shaky early. And kind of not what you'd sort of expect. And Virginia, they were in a dogfight there. Just Towson, again, late in that third quarter, Towson was in there with them and going punch for punch. Gabriel coming back was okay. I think overall Towson won the face battle in this game. So yeah, Maryland and Virginia both not coming in looking their sharpest for that game by any means. And this will be what the first Maryland Virginia game in like 5 years that they'll play where one of them is the number one.
Yeah.
It might be the first Maryland Virginia game that they'll play in like 10 years where one of them isn't in the top 5, which kind of be, or like we'll see. Going into Virginia was 5th, so Virginia might be top 5. I think Duke might bump over them next week. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a really fascinating game next week. Just kind of both teams feel sort of not at their best, kind of taking, just kind of lurking back there a little bit. But it feels like whoever can win that game, man, in that rivalry, like that could just be a rocket launcher in the conference play for whoever can win that game. So it's going to be probably a huge crowd in College Park. So College Park, there haven't been a Maryland Virginia game in College Park in a long time because the game 2 years ago was an Audi, so in DC. So yeah, I'm excited for it, but it's definitely an interesting kind of vibe going into that one.
Jake, surprise of the day, I think. Penn State Cornell. Just the way that they were able to thrash the Big Red. We were talking about it last week. Penn State's big comeback. Against, it was impressive just as Coach Tambroni. But it doesn't look like much of an adjustment. The adjustment was pre-game, and they just stuck with it. Absolutely. I appreciate that, right? The Penn State Cornell, what looked to be one of the more high-profile games of the weekend. Just a total domination by Penn State. What's the final score? 20-9.
Yeah, I think so. Penn State definitely got to 20. We had an 18-7 at one point.
Yeah.
20-9.
Oof. And you had some great poignant tweets about Trainer just able to just take complete control of this game. But I was surprised by this. I thought it would be kind of close. And you know how we have a little Cornell dance whenever we. I think did any of us? Me, you picked Penn State. I think
it was
Ryan.
split. Ryan and Adam had Cornell.
Yeah. So
I did have Cornell in my pool. I was thinking, it was going to be one of these close games because I feel like Cornell Penn State always is decided by about a goal or so, and you have the history with Tambroni always making it a very close one and everything. But yeah, I'm with you guys. Big surprise that Penn State dominated like that. Like I wouldn't have been surprised if Penn State won, but the way that they won was a bit of a shocker, especially because. I can't remember the last time Cornell lost by double digits in a long while.
They lost the game to Yale. This is a couple games that this is the second time they've given up 20 in like the last couple because they gave 20 to Yale in the Ivy League tournament the end of last year. Last time Cornell lost by double digits. Looks like it's going back definitely pre-COVID. I would say, I think pre-Milliman era too. Looks like last time Cornell lost by double digits was to Albany. Jeff Teet's freshman year, 17-6. So 2017. Been a long time. Yeah, this one wasn't close at all, ever, from any point. This was like the first half of Yale Penn State in reverse from last week, except it just there was no comeback at any point. Penn State kept the foot down on them the whole way. I was worried about, I mean, in terms of Cornell, the reason I picked Penn State, like, I was worried about this matchup because, look, Cornell's defense is a problem. I mean, this is the fact now. They've given up how many goals in, they've played 5 games now. They've given up 13, 17, 7, 11, and 20. I mean, it's if just in their defensive efficiency, pardon me, as I'm pulling it up now, going in, I think it was like 48th in the country. Or it was 47th going into today's games, and it's not going to. I don't think it's going to be any better after Penn State was nearly at 50% in terms of unadjusted. They were at 44.4%. So I knew it didn't give me the feeling of that Cornell was going to be able to stop Penn State defensively. And then you look at it, Yale was able to win a lot of faceoffs against Penn State in that game last week. Cornell's not a great faceoff team. So if that Penn State offense had the ball a lot, you kind of had the feeling like they're going to be able to score. You thought Cornell would pace with that offense. That was the surprising thing. It's like, yeah, it's a game, just a shootout, maybe similar to Penn State Yale last week. Where, I do worry is that they wouldn't be able to. Is like, what if Frasian had a big game? And that's what happened. Is Frasian was just phenomenal for Penn State. And he saved 62.5%. And it's like when he's locked in like that, this is the Penn State, blueprint. We have this offense, which is electric. We can keep it going at the faceoff dot, just enough to get that offense the ball, and then we got the best goalie in the country back there. And if he's that good and locked in, we have an offense that we think can beat, anybody and can play with anybody in the country. And so that's their blueprint for success. They kind of showed it out here. And yeah, so I had a feel like if you would have gave me the list of possibilities, like probabilities going in, I would have maybe even said Penn State by a lot over Cornell, but I just didn't feel like a good matchup for Cornell with how their defense was playing. I mean, did I anticipate Penn State winning by 11? No, but yeah, Cornell's defense is a problem. They've struggled in every game, basically the whole work game, and that's the thing is like you look at Yale's defense the last couple of years, and the one thing you always can say with is like it felt like a coaching, like just like this kind of communication issue. Always felt like you could maybe see it improving if like you do that. Cornell, it feels personnel to me, like they're just not staying in front of dudes. Like they can't defend guys. Like I was running the stat like for the keys to victory preview on Patreon this week. Like one, Wyatt Nust, who was the goalie, I mean he got pulled, but like he was saving over 50%. So if a goalie's saving over 50%, your defense is still giving up like 15 goals per game. That's a problem. And two, he's facing a lot of shots, and teams are not exactly shooting like great on Cornell either. I mean, they're shooting. I think it's like their opposing shooting percentage for Cornell is like 23rd or something like that. So it's not as if teams are lighting it up from just shooting it. They're just getting a lot of shots because they are winning like they're just beating them. Like Cornell cannot match feat with these defenders right now. And I think it's clear that defensively, this team had liabilities in terms of personnel that just got covered up by the fact they had one of the best defenders of all time, who, could defend two guys, really. I mean, like, in terms of what he could take away. And you move him out of it, and it's just, this is really, really, it's a problem. It's one thing to have, like, a concern unit, like Maryland, like we talk about, like, their offense, like, their defense, face-off, goalie, top 5. Their offense is like, I don't know, 25th, That's kind of concern. It's different when it's like your defense is like 50th in the country, Like, and especially look at, like, they're next. They got to play Princeton next. Then they play Yale. Then they get Syracuse 2 weeks after that. Like, the offenses don't get any easier for this team. And it's, again, do I think they could score goals? Yes, we've seen that. But it's going to take, it feels like, for them to win right now, 15 a minimum? Like, they would have needed 18 goals to beat Denver. They would have needed 21 goals to beat Penn State. Like, it's 15 minimum right now for them to win these games. And that's just, that's hard. That's a hard, to put on your offense, even as good as the talent they've got on that end. You're muted, sir. You're still muted.
There we go. I was just saying, let's say in the Midwest with Ohio State, Notre Dame, much closer than a lot of people who were expecting. I thought 8 goals was a lot of goals. I thought it was an opportunity for all of us here. But
A lot of goals.
Ohio State, I mean, we give credit where credit's due. Number 2 ranked adjusted defense by Lacrosse Reference, and for the most part, they kind of showed that stout defense against Notre Dame today. Pretty much, besides a spurt in the fourth quarter, this was looking like it was kind of going down to the wire. I mean, we got to give credit to Chris Kavanaugh finished up, which is, I think, 8 total points, 7 goals, one assist, was it?
So 5 and 3, I think.
Yeah, Kavanaugh. Sorry, 5 goals, 3 assists, but yeah, 8 total points. Pat Kavanaugh had 1 goal and 3 assists. So and Will Lynch, pretty dominant in the face-off, 14 of 24. Entenmann, with 10 saves, continues to be like a stalwart back there in the cage for Notre Dame. But it was a little bit of what we kind of expect. Ohio State, was like chippy. There was a bit of a incident with that. Was it Kavanaugh and Taylor and Buckeye goalie Caleb Fyack. I didn't see that live. I don't know if any of you guys caught that live, but it was right around the end of the third quarter. A big win last week against Maryland. Now another win against a Big Ten team in Ohio State. Seems to have kind of righted the ship after the close but still lost to the Hoyas. But Notre Dame, thinking probably is going to be probably top 3 by the end of the weekend, maybe closer to number 1. But Ohio State, like I said, I think because decent effort. We don't want to over praise valiant efforts. When you lose, but I think they are. You just need a better offense. The defense, number 2 in the country right now. According to Cross Reference, there's something to build on. I thought that they have, Fyack seems to have gotten endeared himself to his teammates and in the way that you kind of see them react to him. So I feel like they have set deep, but yeah, it's kind of similar to what I was feeling with that Virginia game, where I was the D had several pretty decent stops against the Cavs. Just couldn't capitalize on a time when when the Virginia wasn't running away with it. So if they can just find an offense, I mean that's easy for me to say over here, just in Trenton. But if they could just find an offense, I'm not saying they're dangerous or they're going to steal something in the Big Ten. But I was like, that's something to have. If you're going to have a good defense and you can kind of keep these games close, you just kind of find some goals and get maybe a little bit better at the face-off, that could get some more possessions, but ends up being, probably more points. But like I said, if you're a Buckeyes fan, got to be a little bit encouraged. Team defending champion coming into your home stadium, had a pretty tight affair throughout most of the game, and then kind of let it get away from you in the fourth. But that's the Ohio State lover in me, having to abstain from having to pick the pick 'em this week. But I don't know if you share or had any other thoughts about this one before we close up with the Highlanders.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you told me the possessions in this game would be Notre Dame +1, and I said for Ohio State, to me, it looked like they had to win faceoffs. That was kind of my key for them. Is I thought they had to win kind of +60%. I thought kind of what Georgetown did. Which I mean Georgetown didn't necessarily dominate faceoffs, but I thought it had to be like a faceoff kind of with that long possessions, sort of attacked Notre Dame's shorties. Ohio State's got some promising midfielders. Blake Island with 3 goals, Matt Caputo with 3 goals as well. So they got some promise there from the midfield, and that was sort of my kind of what I would look for is just long kind of possession. See if you can isolate kind of tire out maybe those shorties and get after them. The fact that I mean it was a slower paced game for sure. Like both teams average possession length was about 50 seconds. So neither team, again, the total possessions in this game was under 70. So the fact that their offense was able to put up a decent, kind of performance, 29.4% against Notre Dame. Yeah, that's, solid. Defensively, Notre Dame had 13 goals on 35 possessions. It's a pretty strong day at the office. I don't think Ohio State's got the second best defense in the country. That's not, we don't have the stats for the Notre Dame game in. It's not going to drop them heavily, but it'll drop them a little bit. Their last 2 games against Cornell and Notre Dame, they've been, 30%, north of 30% adjusted defense. But they hang in there against, look, their defense last year was, it was a sieve. They were just getting, lit up. And this year it's much, much improved, certainly. So, they're improved. They're hanging in these games. To me, they just don't appear to have a lot of kind of the high end talent to kind of really win these kind of games. They seem to be improved and playing hard, and the kind of team cohesiveness you kind of mentioned, I think, is probably better than it's been in recent years. But yeah, overall the talent, I don't know if it's doesn't strike me as what it probably needs to be beat some of these teams, at least right now for the moment right now. Maybe that'll change, but yeah, they look like a team. They look like a decent team. Just probably I don't know, the 20th 20 range, and playing really good teams, which is top 5, top 10, which that's tough. But at home, maybe they could one upset somewhere in Big Ten play.
Definitely. And Jake, we'd be remiss without but mentioning, maybe closing with the New Jersey Institute of Technology, America's team. Jake is 7-0. I mean, we bandied about that a few weeks ago. You said America needs to be ready for a 7-0.
How to talk to your kids about a 7-0 NJIT. Here we go.
Exactly. Where were you?
Put the little ones.
But I'm gonna let my New Jersey partisan side show, which I show every episode anyway. So. but I just love Jersey. But just to give a shout out to the Highlanders, one more win at any point this season will give the Highlanders a winning record for the first time ever. The 13 goal victory is the 5th double-digit win in program history. this is what I thought was really interesting, Jake. Not only are they the first team to be 7-0, they will have the longest winning streak in the country because they won their last game of last year. So they actually are on a 8-0 win streak. One other thing, because yes, you can always question the quality opponents of anybody, but 4 of NJIT's wins this year were first time ever. So it's not like also teams that like they maybe had like a couple of wins which were few and far between. Like I said last year, like their 3 wins last year was more than they had the last 4 years combined. So they've lapping their record now with 7. So NJIT now begins America East play, which is like kind of where we see if they're like kind of for real, like at the end of the day, that this is a conference that it's kind of a one big team, whoever wins the AQ. So NJIT makes it a America East tournament, gets a win there, and maybe gets to AE championship game. I mean, that would be phenomenal for the development of the team, let alone what a win there would be. But yeah, lot to go before we don't even talk about bracketology on this show for another few weeks. But it's just a fan of Jersey, love Jersey, and just like this team, I'm not saying like I watch every single game wire to wire, but I've watched more NJIT this year than like last 5 years combined, easily.
Listen, man, I was locked into that Manhattan game a couple weeks ago on a Wednesday night.
It's good entertainment. It's fine, like you kind of see like team get just more and more charged after every game. But this one, I mean, this was even bigger than an 18-7. 18-5 win over Lindenwood for the 7th win of the year for the NJIT Highlanders. Stand up, Brick City. If you're up in Newark, shout out to you. You got a good lacrosse team to kind of embrace and. I don't want to hog the mic, but yeah, shout out to NJIT. Really, I really like the stories. Getting votes for now 2 media polls in a row. Probably get a 3rd one. Maybe get an official top 20. If enough people embrace change. But Jake, your thoughts on the 7-0 Highlanders?
So that is an hour. We'll go a little bit over. We would also be remiss if we didn't also mention one of the other of the 4 remaining undefeateds. The 4 now 5-0 Safe's very own Quinnipiac Bobcats.
Listen, it's a great year. It's a great year. It's so maybe even better than 11-4, because that one, this is all just coming out of nowhere. There's a lot of pressure last year too, Jake, to just hit the number. But shout out to Bob.
This is just a good, it's a group thing. It's basket. It's so many. Just got our hands in so many pots here. Quinnipiac, yeah, 5-0. Wagner next week. Chance goes 6-0. And then Marist, Manhattan, Mount. I mean, Quinnipiac, man, they'll be favored for a long way. But I mean, it's the MAC. Anything can happen.
Yeah, I
NJIT.
just want to point out I was wrong. 5 undefeated teams. Harvard's still undefeated as well. So, so Quinnipiac and NJIT doing something that nobody in the ACC or Big Ten can say. They're undefeated.
No, absolutely not.
NJIT, one more first winning record in program history. 3 more wins would match their total number of wins as a program coming into this year. Of 10. All time, yes, all time. Like if all time, they won 10 games coming into this season. In what?
3 of them won last year.
Yes. So they had 9 wins as a program. 10 wins as a program in 9 seasons. From 2015 to 2023. Obviously, that's like 8+1 basically because of the COVID 2020. If they can win, if they get to 10, they tie at 11. The Vermont game is fascinating for me because Vermont's had a tough kind of start to this. They knocked a big win over UMass today. That was the first time Vermont's ever beaten UMass. They've previously been 0-8, so going to Amherst getting that win. But Vermont has still sort of been the recent kind of standard bearer in that conference. Vermont is still, I mean, I think we would probably see. I don't know what the line will be. Vermont might still be the favorite in that game. Considering just when you look at probably the rosters, going into the season, Vermont would have been a heavy favorite in that game. It's on the road. So that's, a tough one. Like NJIT wins that game, that's a statement kind of win in terms of like the relativeness, like where Vermont dominated that conference for a couple years. Like they won it back to back, and then they were undefeated in regular season play. A year ago, up until they lost the semifinal to Albany. So if NJIT can, go in there and win it, it's really it affirms kind of what we're seeing in terms of the record, that this is a team that's ready to compete in the America East and challenge for the conference, in terms of like being in that top four for sure. If they lose, it depends on how they lose. You lose close game losses that happen. If you lose by a lot, then this is probably just it's a great story, but it's, more of a, that's kind of maybe it for now. They'll still look. They have 4 games at home: Merrimack, Albany, UMass Lowell. Binghamton, Merrimack, UMass Lowell. I think 3 at home. I think they're favored in those games. Like I think, we see. Like I think, so I think getting in the conference tournament is more on the table for this team. If you take care of the business at home, it becomes about UMBC, Bryant. From like this 3 and 4, get you in. A year ago it would need to be 4 and 3 to get. That was kind of the last spot in the America East. So it's about. Albany as well at home. That might be the swing game. Is Albany, at home in terms of it. Like they're gonna have to pick off one game against an established America East program. Albany, UMBC, Vermont. They're gonna have to get one, and you get one, you'll be in the. I think they'll be in the conference tournament for sure. And look, maybe like this is really for real, and they can continue on. Like they'll be in the 4th, the 2, like really in it. But like I think for this to continue, like they're gonna have to pick off one, but it starts next week, and it's a great story to follow. It's cool to see a new kind of program emerge kind of like this and have success they haven't had before, and just featuring in the mix. And so it's been great so far, and hope to see it continue.
Absolutely.
First ever, yeah. Just mentioned that first ever win for Monterey VMS.
Mm.
Oh God, the Navy goalie just biffed the outlet pass. He literally dropped it out of his stick. They were down 1, I think, or was tied. Chance to go down and tie it up. I think they were down 1, chance to go down and tie it up. They got a stop late, and he just literally just biffed it, like dropped right out of his stick. Did Richard Bellarmine beat Marquette by 6?
A lot of smart people said they had great vibes going into this. A lot of really smart people said that going in.
Bellarmine, Utah. Ace, yeah, like Ace on regular season champion. I said, listen, if there's a team in the ASUN, watch out for. Essentially maybe win the league. It was Bellarmine, so that that might come. It might look very good.
And I apologize for those listening on the stream. I think my mic was muted on the stream, but on the recording it'll be there in case you need to listen back on the rundown.
All right. Three big ones tomorrow. Michigan, Harvard, Rutgers, Princeton, Denver, Yale. Who we got?
I got Rutgers, I got Michigan, and I got Yale because of just chaos theory. I think Denver's the better team, but Yale, they looked good against Penn State last week until it fell apart. If they could piece together a full 60-minute effort, they could pull off the upset. And again, I think just the way that the chaos of this season, I think that trend is going to continue a bit more tomorrow.
I'm going Denver, Michigan, and I may flip and go to Princeton. But right now I have Rutgers. I got to figure out how I feel about it in the morning. But yeah, that's what's going on here.
I've got Michigan. I think we all got three different results here. I've got Michigan, Princeton, and I think I'm leaning Denver. I don't know that I agree kind of with Brian. Denver doesn't feel like a team that's going to be number one for very long. I mean, no disrespect to the Pios. Like I think they're a good team. I just, again, like you look at their nature of their wins over Hopkins and Cornell, they very easily could have gone the other way. And it feels like, on the road, I mean, or no, they're actually at home. They're home this one. So yeah, that probably is kind of why I'm leaning towards, Denver. But it's just kind of like, I don't know, you get another tough game, Yale, good offense. It feels like, you play another one of those, just kind of these games Denver plays, like high scoring, kind of crazy game. Can you really get? I don't know. Maryland made 3-0 in terms of overtime games. Maybe Denver can do it. Kind of run the straight 3 in a row. But I think I also just kind of I decided to lean Denver because, look, with Yale, it's kind of like I need to see that defense put a game together. Like I need to I thought I had I bit the bullet too early. I fired off that tweet. I'm like, listen, the Yale defense, they play like this, national title contender, and then they, the second half, it's like, nope, I gotta see it for a full 60 minutes. And I like Petrakis, or not Petrakis, sorry, Stathakis, brother, not Andrew Petrakis, the Cornell case. Okay, Stathakis at the dot for Denver. So yeah, I'm leaning Denver, but that one kind of feels scary to me. Rutgers, Princeton, I got no clue. I really don't. That could go
that game
either
could go
way.
a million different ways. I'm leaning. I picked Rutgers because I think Rutgers for the Army game. They got jumped on, but we felt because they had a lot of injuries. But they've recovered nicely since then. And again, Princeton, we said heading into the season is the mystery box team. It's going to be March 10th, and they're still the mystery box team. And we saw that last week. They looked great against UNC, and they were completely out of their depth against Duke. Rutgers is right about on their level, though, so a big who's to say situation, I guess. But I'm leaning Rutgers because I have liked how they've recovered since that Army game.
Rutgers, defense, I don't know. I think it played better, but Princeton feels like they can score some goals. So, but Princeton's defense, played well against Maryland and North Carolina. Duke was a little worse. Yeah, I don't Face, yeah, I don't know. It could go either way. It's a freaking big game though. Like it's a. I mean, we're talking like if we want to like the implications of like the results today on turn things like that. The Ivy League needs to like win some games here, like at some point, and Syracuse winning that game against Hopkins is titanic. It gets them right in the mix. There's 3 teams in the Big Ten that have done work at a conference and put themselves in a good position. There's probably 3 teams in the ACC, maybe 4 that have done some work at a conference and put themselves in kind of position. There's no one in the Ivy League who's done anything out of conference. And Princeton loses that game, and buddy, that's it. It's over. Like they got nothing left. And like same for Yale against Denver. Yale loses to Denver tomorrow. That's it. There's nothing left. Like if Yale and Princeton lose tomorrow, we are here on March 10th, and the Ivy League team best positioned for the NCAA tournament is the Penn Quakers.
The Quakers.
Like, and Cornell still got games. Like Cornell still got they got Cuse, they got Notre Dame, like down the which are gonna be tough. But like, yeah, like so, we always talk about like it's that's the thing with kind of how this stuff works is like it's like there's always more bites at the apple. It's like until you just kind of like we're more than like halfway through the apple now. Like and it's like every game is another big chunk of the apple. It's like yes, like you win them. Oh, okay.
It's like that little plasticky part, like after you actually get closer to the core. You're like,
it's like if you win, we give you another apple. The problem is if you lose, you've taken a big chunk out of the apple.
You only get the seeds. That's what you have to grow them.
Look, Rutgers is the same deal. Like again, as I talked about, 3 Big Ten teams have done serious work at a conference. Rutgers is not one of them. So they gotta get a win there. Michigan against Harvard. Michigan's playing for just kind of gotta win games. They got Notre Dame next week. That's gonna be tough. Obviously, if you win it, it's great. But other than that, it's sort of like, listen, you gotta kind of you can't afford any slip ups if you're Michigan. Like you lose, like they're just the way their schedule played out. They could not. You really wanted to be one of Virginia and Notre Dame, but if you didn't do that, buddy, you could not lose anything else. And so, yeah, it's a big Sunday in terms of kind of the way this thing's going to play out over the next couple weeks. Listen, man, the Patriot League's already playing conference games. The Ivy's going to play conference games next week. The Big Ten's going to do it after that. Like we are here. Like it's getting in the thick. Yeah, like it's Duke Cuse is in 11 days. So. In terms of like these non-con, it's, what's it, the witching hour? I think we're in the witching hour, basically, for non-con.
Where losses become wins and wins become losses. On that note, we thank you so much for joining us. As always, hit the subscribe button on YouTube for when we go live on the weekends to do things just like that. A little bit later than we usually do, but that's the magic of finally having Saturday Night Lacrosse on our hands. Thank you, Jake and Safe, for bringing us home this week. And as always, you could also, if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast outlet, be sure to subscribe on that for the Crosse Commission podcast. And, of course, subscribe on Patreon. $6 a month gets you a whole load of extra content, exclusives you can't find anywhere else, with insights and analysis you can't find anywhere else in the world of college lacrosse as well. And as always, you can follow us at college_cross on Twitter. So from all of us, thank you so much for joining along or listening. And as always, stay hydrated.
Mr. President.